No, I must admit one of the reasons I always like chatting with you is because you are, as you say, south of the river. Um, you know, you know. Listen, if you're Ian Jury, can I be a blockhead?
You can be anything you like, mate.
Lovely, thank you very much. Or
All
white.
good.
So anyway, I've got me got my t-shirt for the weekend,
Excellent.
and when I messed about with the green screen, it came good. So yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah,
fine.
it looks tidy now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. So Sean, as I said just backstage, though, I do apologise. I was looking forward to seeing you actually as a guest on a few of the channels, but you were saying that you actually quite like the idea of being sort of back as a mod and keeping an eye on things.
Yeah, I just felt that perhaps I would serve a greater purpose, if you
Hmm.
like. Um, People aren't always too receptive to the sound of Ian Jury banging down their speakers.
I
Um,
love it.
and sometimes I can get a little bit lost in the point and ramble a little bit. So I thought we'll ease off the TV appearances and we'll kind of stick to what I do best, which is writing. So yeah,
Well,
I
anyway, I was very keen to have you on and get your opinion on the. Well, first of all, the yes Sunday's event. Sunday for us, it started 2 o'clock and went through till, well, it was supposed to finish at 4 in the. I think it was supposed to finish at 5 in the morning, because I think Ripper went on at 4, and listen, it's up to him how long he wants to go. But I thought it was hilarious because I think he was on the Jack Daniels, and at one point I saw him finish off the bottle.
the bottle. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think after what was it 7 hours of broadcasting, I think I'd need a stiff one as well. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
No, he was. It was great, but yes, let's have our Ian Jury's opinion from south of the river.
okay. I thought it was a fantastic day. It went really well.
Hmm.
Everybody was interested. It held
Yeah,
the numbers throughout the full. Well, through what was
yeah,
it? It was supposed to be 14 hours, but I think
yeah.
it went for more like 17, something like that.
Yes, yeah,
It was a fantastic day. It raised lots of money for the foundation.
yep,
It reminded everybody of Ericosi, which
yeah,
was, the kind of honour, if you like, of the
yep.
day. I just thought it was a well conducted, a fantastic day. Everybody seemed to have enjoyed it. Surprisingly enough, there was no guilt. There were no guilters kind of poking their heads in the
No,
doors or
no,
anything like that, which
no.
surprised me, because usually they like to sabotage these things. And I think, from a common man's point of view, I think it went really, really well. I think it was fantastic.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I've got an opinion on the guilters, which is the fact that, slowly but surely their whole argument is just crumbling before their eyes. It's just falling apart. But I just wondered if one of the things that really helped make the event was the fact, they say that a day in politics, is a long time. But my goodness, that week leading up to the event, what
Wow.
on earth? What on earth did we see?
All sorts of things, really. We saw, well, let's start with
Mhm.
Kathleen Zellner's filing, shall we?
Yep. Yep.
And from there, the airwaves went mad, didn't
Yep.
they?
Yep.
All the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, it all just exploded. So, if you know anything about legal procedure, you know that what Kathleen is doing is trying to raise an issue around the Denny and the Brady. Now,
Exactly.
I think there's greater emphasis placed on the Brady violations than there is anything to do with laying any accusations at the door of Bobby Dassey. All right.
Yep. Yep.
All she's doing really is suggesting that Bobby Dassey could have been involved in the
Yep.
planting of the vehicle.
Yep.
Now, she's she's bound by what the witness tells her. She can only move as far as or within the parameters of what the witness tells her. Kathleen Zellner is just a messenger. And when someone like that walks in your door and says, look, I saw two people pushing what I believe to be Teresa Holback's vehicle onto the Avery property on the morning of the 5th of November, she's going to rip his arm off for that. You know, that's like gold dust. You know, that's for Kathleen Zellner, that is the golden goose. She's going to make whatever use of that she can for her clients.
Yep.
Now, that's her responsibility. She doesn't have to prove anything other than what the witness has claimed. Yep. If she can feasibly show that there is some veracity to what he is saying, I mean, she's made her point. Do you know what I mean? She only has to prove that it could have happened. Not that it did happen. It might not have been Teresa's vehicle. It might not have been Bobby Dassey. You know, it could have been completely innocent. Just someone pushing a clapped out old vehicle which had broken down a mile down the road onto a scrapyard, Paul, essentially. Now, the world went mad saying that, oh, we knew Bobby Dassey was involved. Bobby Dassey's the killer and all the rest of it. I don't pay any attention to any of that.
Sure.
It's I think people are seeing a little bit beyond the intention of what Kathleen's doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Where her point is the vehicle was pushed onto the property, and yet you've got half the world out in kind of internet land, and they're saying, oh, well, he must be the killer then. Well, look, Kathleen isn't making any allegations against anybody. All she's doing is delivering a message that was given to her by the witness. So in the intervening days, we've seen all sorts of stuff. We've seen the state's response, Kathleen Zellner's response, and then last night, and then last night we see the issue of the state's response to Kathleen's response. It just looks like
I've not actually seen this state's response, but I've heard that they're accusing Kathleen of an improper filing or something, you know.
Yes.
But what's really funny is the fact that, well, first of all, from the serious point of view, obviously, as you pointed out, the main purpose of this initial motion was to point out the Brady violation of the fact that you had a witness saying that he saw the car on the property before Pam Sturm is guided by a burning bush.
Precisely.
You know, and that's and as you say, that is the most important thing here. That it's less the the fact that it's Bobby. It's the fact that law enforcement in Manitrock ignored that, like they did the 95 phone call, like they did Kevin Ramlow telling, Andy Colburn, oh, the car's just up the road there. No report of it, So you're absolutely right. But were you one of those ones that thought, this is a bit strange, it seems a bit quick, getting Tom Sawinski to make this affidavit, and there was no mention of her having corroborated what he was saying, and so the state sort of naively thought, that Kathleen Zellner is no better than them when it comes to being a lawyer, and were completely gazumped when she filed her response.
Well, to say that they shot themselves in the foot is something of an understatement. Kathleen Zellner's been in this a long time.
Yeah. When
you look at the scoreboard, you've got Kathleen Zellner 22.
Yeah.
USDA's 0. Yeah. Now, Kathleen Zellner is not the kind of person you want to go making wild allegations about when it comes to the due diligence and homework and all the rest of it. She's been in this game a long time, Paul.
Yep.
She's not going to take a wild chance making a claim like that and not have anything to back it up. I mean, that would be the most stupid schoolboy error of any novice lawyer just 6 weeks out of law school. You know,
Precisely.
Kathleen, I'm sure Kathleen didn't come out of the Marquette School of Law. You know, this isn't the kind of thing where you make stuff up on the fly. She's experienced, she's skilled, she's got
Yeah.
lots of skilled people working for her, all of her investigators and all the rest of it. She knows what she's doing. So for the state to turn around and say, oh, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about, all these wild allegations. And Kathleen Zellner's sitting there wetting herself laughing, thinking, yeah, just you wait, mate, you know, I'll see you in 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, and we still don't know what she's got. So, you know, it would be crazy to think that someone with as much experience as she has would take such a wild shot in the dark. You know,
yes, exactly.
Let me think of the word for this. It's just not possible. It's impractical.
Yeah.
To think that this could happen, you know. Sorry,
incomprehensible. Yeah. I mean, Bobby, as he's affectionately known, or was before he retired. I mean, that was just classic. That line, you know, it's and it's so typical of Herman to sit there and try and convey this image and this persona of being totally calm and totally under control. You know, we can do that. You know, it's just impossible. It's impractical. I'm trying to think of a word, but it's just, you know, and it's classic Herman.
It's mad, just mad.
Yeah. So have we actually seen the state's sort of response?
I have seen it. I've had a very brief look at it.
Yeah.
And it would appear that what they're saying is that she had no right to reply with her last response.
All right.
It turns out, having looked at some of I'm not a researcher, Paul.
Sure.
I just read the documents that other people dig up.
Yeah.
And put out there. So, having looked at some stuff this afternoon, it would turn out that there is a statute that doesn't say she's not entitled to do that.
Oh no!
And yet I've seen some other stuff that would suggest that she is entitled, in fact, to respond to the state's whatever. So, you know, she's, like I say, she's been in the game a long time. These must be absolute amateur lawyers sitting at the Wisconsin DOJ thinking, what can we do? I know, we'll do that. It's got nothing to do with law or legal precedent or case kind of history or anything else.
Finding the truth finding.
They're just digging it out of their head and stall. I think it's a stall in it. I think it's a tactic to stall for time, and it will give them time to do whatever they need to do to work on the issues that she's raised in her original claims. So we're waiting, you know.
I think I'm going to have to, because I'm sat in this studio, I'm going to have to check out on this keyboard if I've got sound effects and see if I've got a train horn going. Doo, doo. I think that's what I'm needing, don't you? Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Can I take you back though? The week before, was it the week before or 2 weeks before, that incredible conversation between Big Jeff Millbilly and Brad Dassey? What did you make of that? I mean, you know, Brad Dassey, and Barb, you know, I don't think they'll be exchanging Christmas cards in December. Do you?
I doubt there'll be. Which December are you talking about?
Exactly.
You know, it's bad.
Yeah.
Now, it's the most unprofessional display of anger I have ever seen online. Certainly, he appeared. In my opinion, Paul, he appeared as though he was a raving lunatic, man, and it just, you know, it was actually quite distressing to see a meltdown of a grown man who really is having trouble dealing with his emotions.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a certain sympathy for him in the fact that apparently Brad was. Well, we hear that he was believing of Stephen and Brendan's guilt back in oh 05, oh 06,
That's
oh
correct.
07.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Because you can imagine somebody living either in if he was living in Manitowoc, then he's hardly going to be the one voice amongst the whole of the Manitowoc population going against their
Mm,
opinion that
mm,
Steve and Brendan have done it. So I get a little bit of his anger, and I know that he's written another tune where he actually quotes bits of the three-way conversation between Steve, Barb, and Scott. And let's face it, they engaged in that conversation. Maybe they shouldn't have done. Maybe they should have realised. Hold on a sec, guys. This is being recorded. This is going to come back and bite you in the behind.
mm.
But yeah. That's Sapper. That is a good comment. That's
All right.
oh sorry, hold on a sec. That's a good comment, but this is also a good comment. He was over the top, but it's not unreasonable. And I suppose what I'm saying is that I get his anger at this, but is it being misdirected at Barb?
I believe so. I believe wholeheartedly. Okay, right. Since you brought it up,
Sure.
while we're talking about Brad and Barb and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
okay. I'd just like to say this to start, so that everybody out there, I'm friends with a lot of people
Yes. Yep.
in the groups and all the rest of it, and I just want to get this out there so that people know. Now, a lot of people are aware of my position in this.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, there is no point today, after 15 years of everything that's happened, Barb hasn't spoken to anyone.
Yeah.
What makes anybody think that putting her under pressure today is going to bring her to someone's door where she knocks on it and says, I want to talk? It's not going to happen. She's a mother.
Yeah.
She's going to stand by her son regardless. And I think that people should leave her alone. She's suffered enough. She's got a brother who's been locked up twice wrongfully.
Yep.
She's got a son who might never get out of prison. What is the point in putting her under any more grief than she's already suffered? There's no need for it. It's pointless. It just doesn't serve any purpose. She's not going to talk. Nothing that you say now is going to bring her to the table. So stop badgering her. Stop putting her under pressure. If you've got any messages for Bobby, don't go into the chats on people's lives and say, oh, Barb, you need to tell Bobby this, you need to tell Bobby that. Barb doesn't need to tell Bobby anything. If anyone's got anything to say to Bobby, perhaps they should send a message to Bobby rather than badger Barb about it. It's not fair. It's as simple as that. She's got her own life to live. She's been going through this for 15 years. It's enough. Knock it on the head, guys. Just leave the woman alone.
Yeah, well said there. I have huge sympathy for Barb because I think from watching Making a Murderer Series 1, when Brendan does that phone call, is it just after the April interview? She says, so you actually did it.
Yeah,
and she just doesn't know. She just doesn't know. And how could she possibly be keeping an eye on everybody 24/7? It's not gonna. She doesn't know.
Well, you've made a good point now about the April interview and the phone call and her comment to Brendan. Oh, so you did it then? I mean, that would suggest to me that up until that point, she absolutely believed in his innocence.
Yeah.
In that respect, she had to believe in Steve's innocence also. She's always said, I believe my brother's innocent.
Yeah.
Up until that point, she believed her son was innocent. Yeah. Now, knowing, having, for all of my years of experience, professional experience, coming into contact with members of law enforcement, Metropolitan Police in particular, I learned procedures and processes and all the rest of it, and the rules of engagement, so to speak. And having watched Making a Murderer, I can only conclude that they are, I mean, if you could regard Manitowoc sheriffs as Keystone cops, I think that would be elevating them above their position. All right. Now,
yes.
I know firsthand how the police can behave.
Yeah.
They use these tactics to separate individuals, to drive division. They create wedges, which they work extremely hard to insert between family members, simply to cause doubt in the minds of family members. They knew, and I'm sure they knew, well, of course they knew that Stephen and Brendan had nothing to do with the death of Teresa, and yet they were very effective in splitting the family up.
Yeah.
Now, once that happens, it's curtains for the family, because there's no way back from that. There really isn't. It's horrific. It really is. You know, it's. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think you put your point across very, very well there. And yes, as I say, if Bobby is involved in the planting, and certainly, by the time it got to trial, he had been got at to change his story. But yeah, does as you pointed out earlier, does planting of the RAV equal he's the murderer? I mean, the other thing is that struck me was that you've got an 18-year-old lad pushing the car, and you've got a guy who's nearly 60 with a long beard. Who's in charge in that situation?
That's right.
Who's the accomplice? Bobby was probably being used because, as a lot of people have pointed out, he knew the salvage yard, and they needed somebody on the inside to help put the car there. But I don't. I struggle with Bobby to find a motive, particularly given the fact that he, according to this conversation that he had with Brian, he said that it couldn't be Steve because he saw Teresa leave. Obviously, they've put pressure on them to by the time it comes to court appearance, to lie. But seriously, do we think that that any of this would have been looked at any further once Steve and Brendan were locked up? Nobody would be bothered looking at this until Making a Murderer came along.
Well, when I think about Ken Peterson's attitude and his belief, well, I mean, I won't call it a belief. I would call it, I don't know what I'd call it, but his assertion, if you like, that Steve was guilty of the Penny Beanston rape. Well, look, everyone knows he was not involved in the Penny Beanston rape. That's quite blatantly obvious. Now, for him to turn around and sit there and say that is akin to him sitting there and saying it would have been easier to kill Steve than it would have been to frame him. Yeah. What makes you think that it's okay to say that for the position that you hold? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. It's
absolutely. As Joyce, I think is agreeing with us. Might just be the accomplice of the planter and or the killer. We hear about this stuff on his computer, that he's got this file with Teresa and Steve and DNA, and he used to call her Steve's girlfriend. But I still don't get a motive for Bobby. This is all about derailing the civil suit.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I think for myself, it's less about the money and more about the judgment. and
Yeah.
everything associated with the judgment, because once they get a judgment against the county or the sheriff's office, someone then has got to step up and take it on the chin. They've got to apologise to Stephen Avery.
Exactly.
Can you see anyone from law enforcement in Manitowoc apologising to Stephen Avery for anything?
They never have. They have never. The only person involved in the Penny Bernstein wrongful conviction, the only person to apologise is Penny herself.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know,
That's
nobody
right.
nobody else has apologized. You know, okay, we get Mark Gundrum, you know, saying, you know, that you know, Stephen Avery got up and told everybody about it, and everybody got up and gave him a big round of applause, you know, as if, you know, oh, how terrible that was. Imagine if that happened to me. And as I was saying to Stacey last night, you know, Stacey saying, you know, Mark Gundrum then, as soon as Steve is arrested, he's one of these political creatures that has to suddenly abandon that ship and try and get board on the other ship. Or you know, whilst you want to give him the you know, whilst mentally you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, you know, or morally you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, it's actually impossible to do, or words to that effect. And you think, oh my goodness, you know, what sort of people are we dealing with here? And he's now a judge.
It addles my brain to think that the judicial system in Wisconsin can operate this way.
Yeah,
it absolutely defies belief to think that some of these people who are charged with who are charged with the administration of law, the administration of the protection of the public, and how they come out with some of these comments which fly in the face of the principles of their positions.
yes.
And it's absolutely wrong. What makes them think that it's okay to do this?
Well, yeah, but I think we've got Ken Kratz saying, you know, in closing arguments, you know, reasonable doubt is for innocent people. And that just begged belief. You know, I was surprised that there wasn't immediately an objection. You know, well, everybody's innocent in the court of law, therefore you've got to give Steve reasonable doubt.
Well, that in my view, Ken Kratz's presser removed any semblance of presumption of innocence long before it ever got to trial. He knew exactly what he was doing. It was a kind of belt and braces approach for him. He knew that the fix was in. He had to be part of it, or he had to at least know some of what was going on. There's no way that he could have been in the position that he held and not know what was going on. I'm sorry, Ken Kratz is not able to wash his hands of this one bit.
Well, we don't hear much from Pete Bates. Sadly, we only get 2 clips of him, don't we? The first one is on the conflict of interest, you know, and he, you know, he's quite adamant about the fact that, you know, this is wrong. You know, you do not take over the property for days on end. You know, the search warrant is not meant for that. It's meant for a search. You go in, you search, you know what you're looking for, you go and get it, you then leave.
Yeah.
But the other thing that Pete Bates says, of course, is the fact that, you know, this is such a mess, and I blame one person. And he was the one directing everything, telling everybody where to go. He was the one directing Wiegand and Fassbender, go and do this, go and do that. You know, he was the one telling Fassbender, keep hold of this CD in your own personal collection. Don't let the defense find it, you know. He's the one to blame.
It's mad. I mean, since when does a law enforcement officer take evidence home? When does that ever happen? Ever. It's just ridiculous. And that's nothing compared to everything else that's gone on in the case.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the theatre and the drama of the investigation of the Teresa Holback investigation, if you like, It's all being directed by Ken Kratz.
Yes.
Ken Kratz is bringing pressure down on Jerry Pagel. We need more. We need more. Get your boys out there and do whatever you've got to do. We need more. Because it's quite obvious that by the end of March 2006, they've got nothing. They've got nothing against Stephen Avery.
Yep.
What have they got? They've got the car. They've got the key. They've got the bones. But you know what? They can't link any of it to Stephen Avery.
It's also no suspicious blood as well. Yeah.
There isn't a scrap of DNA. There isn't a hair follicle of hers on the property.
Yep.
They've got nothing. And so what happens? Come on, we need more. Get your boys out there. Do whatever they've got to do. I don't care. We need something definite to nail Stephen Avery.
Yeah.
What can we do? Where do we go from here? So they go back through everything. They listen to what they review every document. They review every recording. They knew how malleable Brendan was.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're grasping at straws then. So they go and drag him out of school. 2 experienced law enforcement officers. I mean, really, take a 16-year-old kid out of school and they treat him. I mean, it's appalling what they've done to their child.
Well, the school in particular. My wife works with vulnerable kids. That would never ever happen.
No, never in the UK.
You know?
If a policeman turned up at school gates without a warrant, they'd be told where to sling their hook.
Yep.
It would not happen here in the UK, and if it did, the school would be liable for any damage. Do you know what I mean? Any kind of trauma or anything like that. It just wouldn't happen, Paul. There's no way that a UK teacher or a head teacher would risk their career by allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen. No.
Yeah. Final question. Looking into your crystal ball, or your glass of Jameson, whichever you prefer. What?
I love you.
Yeah. Cheers. What thoughts about the going forward? We're hoping that the appeals court will give a decision sooner rather than later. Eventually, sorry, just my question, I suppose, is: do you think the lovely Angela Superwitch is eventually going to have to say, "Yeah, I'm going to have an evidentiary hearing," or could it even be that the Court of Appeal says, enough with this, do an evidentiary hearing if you think one's necessary. We are ordering now an evidentiary hearing. What would your thoughts be?
I can't see Angela Superwitch changing her tune now.
Right.
She nailed her colours to the mast a long time ago.
Yeah.
So for her to do a U-turn now, I can't see it, Paul. I really don't see it. So the Court of Appeal, well, I don't think they can respond really with anything in regards to the appeal until this issue is dealt with the current motion.
Yeah.
It's a long game, Paul. We've seen this time and time and time again. Motion after motion after motion. It's a long drawn out process.
Yeah.
Anyone that thinks that any of this is going to be resolved overnight, listen, you need to get your sleeping bag, a comfy pillow, and make yourself comfortable, because this is not going to happen anytime soon. It's a long process, the appeals process. Yep. It's torturous in its delay, but that's the way the system works. You can't rush it. There's nothing that you can do to egg it on. It moves at its own pace. And so I've been in this now almost 5 years.
Yep.
I was well prepared from day one that this was going to take a long time. These exoneration cases, some of them can take 10, 15, 20 years.
Yep. Decades to unravel. Yep.
And Kathleen Zellner's only been in it for 5.
That's right.
So,
Yep.
no, there's going to be no resolution. I don't see any resolution, certainly this year. I just don't see it.
No, but as I've said to a few people, the smile on my face is because you know our weekend event went very well. It brings all the people together, and the Kathleen Zellner taking the mick out the state like that. I mean, it is. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
But she's like this. She
Yeah.
likes to attack with a little bit of humour, and I think that's just her little dig at the states. It's
Yes.
her way of fuck you. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry for the profanity, but they asked for that one. Do you know what I mean?
I think Sean, that one in nearly 40 minutes is pretty good, and yeah, I mean even I have been known occasionally to swear as I did a couple of years back in Manitowoc when I was dancing with Ali and did the Gay Gordons past the dude and it's F off dude. Yeah. I mean, sorry. I suppose going back to what you were saying about Brad, that was one of the things I was going to mention. Was if you use too much profanity, you lose the argument straight away, don't you? It just comes across as an angry rant, as somebody that is not in control really of what they're saying. So.
I started driving professionally in the late 90s. I started as a London minicab driver. And
you got the knowledge?
No, a minicab, not black cab.
Oh, not a black cab.
Not the black cab. No,
but
no.
You still have to have some knowledge for that, don't you?
You do. You need to know at least the primary routes.
Yeah.
Certainly through London. You need to have some idea of the geography of the UK. You could go and pick someone up in Blackheath, for example, and they say, right, there's an address in Sheffield. Let's go.
Wow.
Wake me up when we get there. Do you know what I mean? So you have to. It wouldn't be the first. It's happened several times. You just got to be ready. And so, you got to have a bit of knowledge. I started off a bit rough, but then I moved up the scale and I started doing executive work and then VIP work and all the rest of it. And I've had to moderate my language, but I do agree with you. The minute you lose control of what you're trying to say, you lose the argument. And the more kind of, the more swearing and the more profanity that you use, the crazier you sound, the less structured you are, the less sense you make. It becomes more of a rant than an argument.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yep. I agreed. Well, I think there's been plenty of chat going on the side here.
I haven't seen any of it yet. I'll have to review all of that later.
Sure. I mean, basically, I think that it would be fair to say that there are some people who are skeptical about Bobby. There's even people who, I think Barb did not do herself any favors. She didn't mean the way that it was construed, but when she talks about Kathleen Zellner, that bitch, she's going after Bobby now. What's Bobby got to do? What about Bobby? Pleading with Steve as if saying to Steve, could you get Zellner to back off because he's got a wife and family? It came across really badly, but it's so typical of Barb. I don't think some of the times she really realizes what she's saying and how it can be misconstrued, because it was taken by a lot of people, wasn't it, as being, so you care more for Bobby than you do for Brendan, and I think that's problematic for her.
I think you've got to try and see it from Barb's point of view. If it isn't one of her sons being attacked, it's the other.
Yes. Yeah.
She loses either way. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think what needs to happen is that people need to realise Kathleen Zellner isn't accusing Bobby Dassey of anything other than suggesting, not accusing, but suggesting that he might have been involved in pushing the vehicle onto the Avery property. Okay.
Yep.
Now, you know, why people are seeing beyond that and making the connection between Bobby Dassey and Teresa's murder, I can't understand. But people need to stop doing that. You've got to try and see things for what the intent is. She's trying to raise the Brady issue. She's not laying any allegations or any accusations at anyone's door other than the investigators in this case. And so, you know, Barb, she's a mum. There are plenty of mums out there now probably watching this would agree with me when I say if your son was accused of murder, you'd support him.
Yeah.
Whether you thought he was guilty or not, you'd still support him.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's all Barb's doing. So she's between a rock and a hard place.
You know, that suddenly struck me, what you've just said, that, yeah, Barb is going to defend Bobby because she doesn't want Bobby to be guilty of anything either, which struck me as being, well, hold on a sec. It's a little bit like, you know, Mike Holbach when he talks about the grieving process. You know, she's only a missing person, and yet he's already accepted that she's dead.
Gone.
You know, so there's that. You know, usually the family of the victims are the last ones to accept that anything bad could have come to their person, to their loved one, even to the extent where you have to show me the body. You know, you have to show me in the morgue that person lying there before I believe you. And yet, you know, Barb's probably the same with Bobby. You know, you're going to have to really, really show her concrete evidence. You know, possibly it's going to have to be Bobby actually coming forward and saying, "Do you know what, Mum? Yeah, they got me, but the reason was that and the other."
Yeah. Now, you know, until that happens, you know, Barb's going to believe in the innocence of her son.
Yeah,
and I could, you know, any parent would do that.
Yeah,
and at this moment in time, there is absolutely no evidence that I have seen that would suggest to me that Bobby was involved in any of it. And so until kind of, you know, something comes up and is put on the table in front of you and says, well, look, how's that for starters? Then I don't care. I'm not interested in any mudslinging against the Dassey family. It's got to stop. That's you know.
Yep. Well, listen, Wizard, it's been absolutely fantastic as usual to have you on. Always love
a pleasure.
Chatting to Ian Jury.
God bless you, Gov. God bless you.
Me old China. So hopefully we'll see you again pretty soon. We'll say adios until then. I'm going to let you finish off by saying cheerio to the people in the chat, and then we'll finish at that.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in the conversation. And I'll be looking through all of the comments to see who I need to shoot later. All right. So beware. Listen, thank you all for joining. It's been great. Paul, you're a gentleman as always. Look forward to the next time, fella. You have a good night.